Hello and welcome to the Buildup. This is the podcast for marketing in the construction industry. I'm Dan, the creative director at Dissident. We've been working with construction brands for a number of years. It's an exciting and rapidly evolving industry, and that's why we created a podcast dedicated to the weird and wonderful world of construction marketing. I'll be speaking to leading brands, other agencies, creatives, influencers and startups. This is the resource I wish we had when we first started out in the industry. Thank you for being here and welcome to the Buildup. Welcome to the Buildup. I'm Dan, the creative director at Distant, and I am joined today by Alex Insley.
Yep, that's right.
Who is the? I never figured out your job title.
I don't really have one.
Okay,
and the reason being is there's always going to be something that you do different within
That's
business.
true.
So I never.
Well, let's just say Alex from Unilite, also famous for Trade Legends podcast, among other things.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast. Really
Thank you
appreciate having you on. I wanted to start. Well, listen, I'm not very good at doing intros, so I'd love for you to, for the people who don't know who you are, just give a brief introduction to yourself and Unilite specifically, if that's okay.
So Unilite was originally created in 1981, mother and father, so family business. And those guys got divorced when I was about 8 years old. And we never really did what we sort of do now. Like the company's evolved probably in the last 15 years or so that my sister and I were running the business for. It was always there or thereabouts, sort of grew and then decreased because my dad had somebody else running the business for him. And then when me and the sister have come into the business, for the last 15 years, we've had double-digit growth, apart from 1 year. So it's sort of, we primarily aim at trade, construction, tradesmen and women. And again, when I came into the business, the thing that we sort of did was, I felt like we were trying to make products for everybody. Yeah. Whether you were going fishing, camping, running, walking, doing your daily job, whatever it was. And we were sort of spreading ourselves too thin. So I looked and I thought, whenever there's a recession or anything like that, what one thing never stops, or, if you're short for money from a recession, you're going to not go camping. Yeah. And the only thing that I could see was trades. Yes. You're always going to need somebody to fix lights or fix your toilet. So we started just hammering tradesmen and women. And we sort of, started with the lighting. And then in the last sort of 5-6 years, we've gone into workwear, tool bags, tools, knives, loads of different things. So it's sort of evolved over like primarily the last 5 years mainly. Wicked. Love that. It's very similar, not very similar at all, but that specific area of just like what's safer than other industries. That was exactly how Dissident sort of found themselves in the construction industry. We had a massive range of clients. We did kind of like everything for everybody. And when COVID hit, the guys that stuck around were healthcare and construction. So about 70% of our client base is currently construction. It's probably like 80-20 construction to healthcare. It's one of those things that we just sort of thought, the lockdown hit. About 3 days later, one of our construction clients was like, should we jump on this video production then? I'm like, are we even allowed to do that? Are you okay? And they're like, yeah, we're cracking on as normal, no problem at all. And I was like, okay, this is an industry that we need to. Very lucky as well during COVID that construction didn't go. Yeah, it was. So we were, all of our, we had some great, sexy clients like spas and restaurants and sort of high street brands. And they're all just like, no budget. Marketing's gone. Sorry for the next foreseeable. And then construction, healthcare. Obviously, everyone still needs healthcare. Everyone still needs stuff building. And especially because we work mainly with manufacturers of construction products. Even the DIY, was going mad in COVID. So really, really cool. So Unilite currently. We start off as lighting, but moved into sort of accessories, clothing. We sort of looked, and obviously the size that we were in, probably 10 years from where we were at the point where we sort of started to diversify, I looked and I thought, if we don't start looking at other avenues, when I'd go into a wholesaler, for example, they would say to me, they'd say, oh, you only sell one thing. So they weren't bothered. Whereas if you're a larger company, say like Milwaukee, and you've got a whole range of different things, you'd go in and you go, right, I want that wall.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stick all my products on here.
Yeah.
I'll supply you with all the stands. And it didn't matter what you were selling, they'd put it in because it was part of a bigger profile.
Right.
Whereas for us, we would struggle to even get a tiny little bit of space in a wholesaler.
That makes sense. I've never even thought about that.
So I looked and I thought, I need to be able to go in and at least fill a stand. So that was the workwear, hoodies, gilets, knives, pencils, even the coffee mugs, everything branded Unilite. Yes. And now obviously we have a much wider offering, safety glasses, whatever it is, and we can go in and market that whole stand and say to somebody, I can come in and merchandise this for you.
Absolutely.
Which actually gave us a foot into the wholesalers. So that's why initially I diversified.
Yeah.
And then the direct to consumer came along, which meant actually I could use some of these products as free gifts or to say, look, if you buy this, you get this cheaper. And the whole sort of process then started of trying to eke out more on your average order value.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So the two, I did one thing and it actually helped something else without sort of semi-realising.
Yeah, that's mad. So, your toggle's gone up here, and I know you would hate me if I didn't tell you. It was like up here a little bit.
Hiding up there.
And then, if I saw a clip of that, I'd be like, Dan didn't tell me about that. It's that clip, that thing stayed there forever. It's like, so if like your collar's turned up or whatever, like, why didn't you tell me? The direct-to-consumer thing's interesting because most of the companies that we work with and speak to, they only sell through distribution, and there's great things about that, but also issues for as a marketer because a lot of the time you really struggle to get the data. You don't know what's working, certainly short term. How do you tackle that? Because I get the impression, I could be wrong, that a lot, especially the really big brands that have got big distribution networks, and retailers are almost too scared to go straight to consumer. How did you kind of tackle that? Did direct to consumer come later?
So the B2B's always been there.
Yes.
And another thing which sort of, really saved us as a business, obviously, if you had COVID and it was just that COVID period, a lot of the wholesalers shut down or it was limited access. We'll give you whatever you order, we'll come out and meet you. But the direct-to-consumer thing, I kept watching the likes of Gymshark, the likes of Nike, Lululemon, all these types of brands. And then there was an article, I think, where it was like Nike had gone from doing nothing direct-to-consumer, they had this big, massive network, and they'd done like 20% in the first year, direct-to-consumer. And then, like, I think 2 years ago, it was 65%. And I thought, hold on a minute. And I was looking at brands like Dyson and I was thinking, well, they've got their own website. Yeah. And it's absolutely everywhere. I know, I think they stipulate everything's got to be the same price, like MAP pricing like they have in the US. But I sort of looked and thought, hold on a minute, our type of product, I can send it out. It's not like you send it out to sealant or something like that and you've got to send out a whole box of it to warranty. You can't just order one tube of sealant online. And probably about 5 years ago now, I thought, I need a website. So we went, ironically, to a marketing agency which was based in Leeds called Rascal Agency. They're not there anymore.
Oh, that's a shame. Cool, man.
And got those guys to build us the website, which is how I met Nathan. Okay. Because it was Nathan that built the website for us for this agency. And then as time progressed with those guys, I kept finding that every time I wanted something changing, it was costing me money. Or every time I wanted something doing or a new idea, it was always me that was having to think of the idea. And I was like, this is, it's laborious. Yeah. And eventually Nathan said to me, he said, I'm leaving. I said, well, where are you going? And I asked him exactly what he did for us. And it was basically he was doing the majority of the work. Yeah. And the account manager wasn't really doing anything for us. So I said, look, come and work for us. He was like, no, I want to go freelance. I don't want to come and work for another brand. And after about 6 months of using him freelance, he decided that actually I'll come and work for you. But he was originally living in Leeds. Yeah. So he moved down to Birmingham, and that was sort of the birth of the direct-to-consumer fully then, because we had an in-house developer. And when he came down, he then said, look, okay, we've got this website, but it doesn't really link up with your internal system. So he sort of integrated that with our delivery thing, ShipStation, and everything sort of progressed from there. So now everything's seamless. Yes. And the orders get sent downstairs to the warehouse, they get picked and packed and scanned. Everything is done and automated. And it's probably saved us like hundreds of hours a month.
Mad, isn't it? Oh, yeah, all pure profit at that point, isn't it?
Pure profit. And you have to look at stuff like that. As a smaller business, if you're not lean and you're not quick, then these bigger companies, they'll just gobble you alive. Yeah. because they're slow and laborious, but they've got the budget to just wipe you out.
So for context, then Nathan and I've spoken to Nathan because Nathan's the guy that you speak to, for the Trade Legends podcast and stuff like that. He's basically the genius behind the digital. Yeah, he's what an amazing because he did that pretty much on his own. Like there was a team of developers.
He's self-taught. Yeah,
mad.
And my thing was so I already had Jack at this point doing video stuff for me, and I thought, well, why don't I bring him down? And then I've got him building the website and doing all the internal stuff for us. Jack's doing the video content, and my theory was I looked again at Gymshark because they were just based down the road and thought, I watched Ben's videos, and these are so good.
Yeah.
And he's always saying, oh, yeah, we've got this guy who's working internally. And at the time, like I said to you off the podcast, there was nobody like you guys doing anything. And I thought, if I want that type of content, I'm going to have to invest in it and bring people in-house, which a lot of brands, they don't want to touch it. No. They don't know about it, so they don't want to touch it, especially the bigger brands as well. The ones with the bigger budgets, they'd rather just forget about that.
Yeah.
But for me, I wanted to sort of put my own stamp on the content. And you can't really do that if you're using somebody outside the business.
Yes.
Unless you're specific where you guys have got knowledge about the industry.
I think I'm sure there's other agencies like us who specialize in the construction industry, but I don't think there's anyone like us. I think we were the sort of trailblazers of this like very specific creative content and social media marketing specifically for the construction industry. I don't think there's a lot of companies out there that do what we do. So brands might go to a sort of an agency similar to us that don't specialize in construction, and they're kind of getting stuff that's all kind of generic and corporate and things like that. We were positioning ourselves as these kind of the rebels, the guys who work with brands who want their content to be different and creative and stuff like that. Which is always, whenever I saw your content, I'm like, damn, there's not even any point in emailing these guys to see if they want some help. They're good.
There's still brands that are like us. I mean, like even if we were doing a bigger project, say now we've got to run a large campaign across the US, or we've got to run it across the whole of Europe, I still would probably look to get some external help on stuff like that. So there are still brands that do what we do and go, we need more bodies to do it because it's such a big campaign. But, it's very, very difficult to find people in construction that understand that sort of what we want.
Yes.
And that's where sort of you pigeonholed yourself in there, and it works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think though that I said this. I think I've said this on several podcasts, or certainly in several conversations. Unilite are the only ones that I think that I'm aware of. There may be others that have got an in-house team that are doing it right. I think there's a lot of brands that have tried to get an in-house team that is like a creative team, but they're not the right people and they're not qualified. And I think a lot of the problem with that is I think they'll cheap out. They'll cheap out on it. They'll get a junior. They'll get someone who's really inexperienced in the industry, but they've got no one to learn from. So you get someone in who's like, let's say a junior videographer or something like that, but they are the only videographer. So how do you expect that junior to progress and to build their skills and stuff if they don't got anybody to learn off? You need a head of video. Yeah. At the very least, you need like a creative director or something like that.
I sort of took up that role because when Jack came in, obviously he could do whatever, but it was me telling him, this is what I need. Yeah. And then he'd do something, I'll go, that needs to tweak or put that track to it. And a lot of brands, they don't have somebody that's that visionary for the direction of the marketing. And that's where they'll bring like you said, the videographer in. He'll work for 6 months. He's got no direction or, doesn't really understand what the brand is. Yeah. And nobody within the business understands what the brand is. And then they just go, oh, it's not working.
Yeah, it's a tick box exercise to go, videographer, that'll solve a problem. But, especially if they haven't even got a robust marketing team, what's that videographer going to do? I'll take a video of this. But they're kind of going, I have no idea why I'm doing this. it's a sponsored art project essentially at that point. It's kind of like I've made something
just for their CV.
Yeah. And it's mad. You guys are, I think, are the one of the few that are actually doing it well with a big team, because it's a big investment. You know, it makes sense for a lot of companies to go down the agency route because it's less risk. I guess
it's easier for us in essence to do and have that risk because we have the direct to consumer.
Yes.
So it actually, in essence, that investment is getting back what we pay for it and more. Whereas a lot of brands, if it's just B2B, but they don't realise actually if the marketing's on point, all the distributors, you've got all that content for them, so they're using your content, and eventually the business grows. But they don't see that because it's not tangible.
They got the data. Yeah, you guys have got the data. You can make a video, put it out on socials, and go, that worked. Yeah. Within 2 days, 3 days.
And that's what we did, because when the business progressed and I started to use influencers and introduce them, and then we created our own influencer software that literally drags data in from Instagram, from TikTok, all that sort of stuff, and sort of collates it for us. I can go on now and actually see all the stuff behind the scenes on a particular influencer, and I can go, right, okay, that's when they posted that. We can even plug them into our system with an API, and it draws all their data automatically from their own profile.
Oh, cool.
So we can actually see, well, they posted it here, and this is where the uptick was, and that product didn't quite work, and that time of day. And we've got all that data now. And again, I can't remember who it was that said data's the new gold.
Yes.
And I was like, data, how do I get this data? And I was like, you know, direct to consumer, it means when they sign up for an account, I get to know whether they're an electrician, HVAC, or a plumber. I get to know how old they are, when the birthday is. I get to know what products they're looking at because we track them across the website. So then if a wholesaler comes to me and it's a plumber's merchant, I can say, these are the products that plumbers are interested in. So I know if I put those into the branch, 95% of the time it's going to sell. And people don't realise is you use one thing to help you with the other thing.
Yeah.
And so many brands just don't get that.
No.
They don't get it. It's just, really, once you've sold the product to the wholesaler, who's buying it?
Yes, absolutely.
And if you don't know who your customer is, how can you make products for them that you know they're gonna love?
Yeah, you got to give them that data.
It's just
so cool. Yeah, we discussed off air about the direct to consumer stuff, and it's
revolutionised our business.
Yeah,
when we started doing direct to consumer 5 years ago, we're now 3 times the size we were, and it turbocharged the business. It gave me like instant data on the whole business. And I could see not only on social media what stuff was working, obviously, because we're working with the influencers can say, this is what's working. Yeah. This is the questions that I'm getting. And I'm getting live data all the time. It's instant. It's not where it's sold. The wholesaler, it sits on their shelf for 6 months and then come back and say, can I send all this back because it's not selling? Yeah. You know, even if you have a sales team going around and they're going, yeah, well, it hadn't sold after 3 months, but they're not always tracking that because they're focused on getting a sale. And stuff could be not selling at all. Yes. And you've not got that data. You're 7, 8, 9 months behind. Whereas on the website, I can go, this isn't selling. I need to shift this out so I can turn my stock over and get a new product in. Or actually, I'm getting that feedback back that there's an issue with that product, especially if there is an issue with a product. It goes to a wholesaler. It doesn't sell for 6 months. 12 months later, you've got an issue. Yeah. I could have fixed it. So it's, everything sort of revolves around the direct to consumer, really, for us as a business.
Did you get any pushback off the retailers when you went direct to consumer?
I did a little bit, and then I have done over the course of the years, but we're very good at sort of managing the disparity between the two, because obviously they're like, oh, we don't want you selling it. And I'm like, well, are you open on a weekend? Yeah. And they go, no. And I'm like, well, yeah, we are. I'm not going to just shut the whole website off because you're not open on a weekend. Just to, and you have to sort of say that to people, but say it in a way where we're not going to shit on you. Yeah, I still want people to come into your branch and buy it because it benefits me as well as benefiting you. But the reason I went direct to consumer was because I was trying to get products in at places like Screwfix, for example. Not interested. Who are you? Unilite, never heard of you. And what ended up happening was we pushed stuff on the direct to consumer via the influencers. They all know who the influencers are because they want to work with them. Yeah. All of a sudden, hi, can we put your products in? Yeah. And then that actually gave me a bit more power back because I was like, well, you never wanted me when I was nothing. Yeah. And now you see us everywhere. I'm not interested. Yeah. So actually it gave me the option of picking and choosing who I worked with now. Whereas before it was like, please work with me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Whereas now, I'm not interested.
That's mad.
I know I can go and make that money myself if I needed to, really needed to.
Do you think, for these brands that were perhaps already in Screwfix and they've relied on that kind of trade, that there's an element of just, I'm too scared to go direct to consumer, especially if they haven't got the infrastructure already?
There is, but I also feel like, so many brands do it now. And I just think you can't say don't do it because most people's products are on Amazon.
Yes.
So
they're already on Amazon anyway. Yeah.
So if it's on Amazon and you're not selling it on Amazon, somebody else is, I just think, it's not about having control over like your supply chain, but it's having control over your brand.
Yes.
And I would rather do it direct to consumer than do it on Amazon. We are on Amazon, but I don't do that.
Yeah.
There's another company that runs our Amazon for us, and that's deliberately done. So it's like, I don't really have a hand in that.
No.
I get to focus all my energy on the direct to consumer, the own branding that we do for other brands, because we package up products for other companies and stick it under their brand. And then also the B2B side. But a lot of big brands, if somebody like Milwaukee, for example, decided, right, we're going to go direct to consumer, their business would probably treble overnight.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think it's sexier for power tool companies to go direct to consumer. I'm not sure whether...
Still keep the B2B. But I still feel like it should be an option that somebody can go and order it off, especially the larger power tools. They can just order it off the website.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, so if you, for instance, like sealants and like adhesives and stuff like that, we were talking about this earlier. Do you think that it's still like viable for direct to consumer? Or do you think for the most part, like, because you've got to look at your market, haven't you? There's no point in going direct to consumer if your customer is never going to buy them off your website.
You need a product ideally that's probably £20 plus.
Okay.
Because you've got to have something that if somebody's going to order it, if the shipping is the same price as, like say if you buy a box of fixings or you buy a tube of sealant, it's the same as getting it delivered.
Yes.
And it's a bit like you said with the business rates and the rent.
Yeah.
Business rates are more expensive. You think, well, why am I going to rent it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to have something that's a particular type of price and a particular type of product. For us, it's like big work lights.
Yeah.
It warrants ordering one and it turns up at your house.
Yeah.
So you then don't have to spend the time going out and looking for it, or if you've been looking for it and you can't find it, it's on our website, it gets delivered straight to you.
And I guess it's one of those, that's one of those items that you're not getting for a specific job. That's a sort of decision that you're making for the long term, isn't it? So, it's not like, although I'm sure there is a case where you go into your local merchant, you see a big Unilite product that's more of an investment, you go, yeah, go on then. Yeah. There's going to be people doing
they'll
that
have
for
that
sure.
for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
The tube of sealant, it's here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah, and you might need to get it for a specific job. So you go, there might be a situation that comes up where you're like, I'm on this job today. Oh, I've just realised I've run out of sealant. Yeah. I'm not going to order it online. I'm just going to go straight to my retailer.
Well, if you're in a wholesaler and you're getting stuff for your job for the day, you'll just go, give me 2 tubs of that. Yeah. And you pick them up and off you go.
Absolutely. So I think it does make sense for especially like things like the electrical items and stuff like that. But yeah, for people like Milwaukee,
when they do, because they will, it will revolutionise their business. Yeah. And it's sort of, a lot of them, like you say, are too scared to do that. And Milwaukee actually have sort of pigeonholed themselves in a way because they've got those red vans that go out everywhere showing off the products. Yeah. And you probably wouldn't need them as much.
No.
But you're paying somebody to go out with this big red van full of tools, showcasing people when you could just go to exhibitions and actually the stuff's online. Because these days you've got people that do YouTube reviews of products. So theoretically you don't need to touch it as much. No. You can see it, and especially like Nick was in here, you see Nick using it. People go, oh, it's great for that job.
Nick Bundy, by the way. The worst thing I could have done this morning was get Nick Bundy, the electrician, in to come and give us a quote when Alex was coming in, because it was a 40-minute conversation.
Spent ages talking.
A 40-minute catch-up. I didn't even know you guys knew each other, but I should have known. Yeah. Really, really cool. It's great to hear your thoughts on that. Also, just right at the finishing off that kind of line of topic, imagine what the marketing budgets would be like if you just went direct to consumer. Say Milwaukee, they've got great marketing already. Imagine if they went direct to consumer, how the marketing would transform, because they would all of a sudden go, we need videos, we need images that convert, we need loads of cool brand stuff.
They're in a unique position more so than what we are, because they're a bigger brand. They are getting consistently tagged in products every single day, with people just showing off like products. And the one thing they do quite well is they do like a pipeline, a big product reveal and launch, and they get a load of influencers there who are just live streaming it, gets everybody excited for it. but they really wouldn't have to invest as much into an influencer program as what, say, I've had to.
Yes.
Because people are already pushing the products. They're not actually paying anybody to push the products.
No, because it's a cool product to promote. You know, even for free, just go look and check out my new Milwaukee tool.
So maybe all they'd have to do is send free product to people.
Yeah, perhaps.
Which is a lot cheaper than giving extra GP away maybe to some of the wholesalers and stuff like that. So.
Absolutely. So we've established Unilite as a brand that takes marketing seriously, takes creativity seriously, which I think is huge. And you know, like I mentioned before, Unilite's one of those brands that I wish we'd have got in before you guys got a great team. But as soon as when I'm doing my research, I'm looking at brands that I think would be cool to work with. I'd scroll through. This was quite a few years ago. Scrolling through the Instagram, I'm thinking they don't need us. There's no point at all. They've got this down. And one of the few brands that's essentially got a dissident team in house in that respect, which is amazing and brave, and not a lot of companies do it. And I'd prefer them not to do it because they can pay us.
There's not many that could do it, and I feel like, especially again, product dependent, but there's not many that could do what you guys do.
What has been what's made Unilite it is today in terms of a market leader in that creativity and that marketing? Like what things did you put in place that really tipped the scales for you guys?
I think one of the main things that we did was probably, again, 5 years ago, me and the sis split the business down the middle because we were all doing a bit of everything. That's why when you ask me what my job title is, I've done every single job in there. But I think splitting it into, she looked after logistics and the finance and the HR, the boring shit. And then obviously I did the sales, marketing, product development. And then when we looked, and it was like, we don't have a big sales team. No. We've got one sales guy, Rich. And the reason being is every time we brought salespeople in, it's very difficult. You've got to pay for their car, you've got to pay for the meals, you've got to pay for them to stay away, you've got to pay tax, NI, pension contribution. It's a big investment for what they actually bring back.
A lot of time it can take 12 months for you to get the returns on those, because they've got to build those relationships. It takes a long time.
A long time. So it's a big, long investment. Whereas again, I thought, well, what's a quicker way of doing that? Now, using people like Nick or Mark, who you've had on the podcast, these guys in essence have become my sales team.
Yes.
And actually, I can ring them like a wholesaler. And I'm not slagging off my distributors because they're an important part of the business. But if you contact one, it might take you 3 weeks to get a reply.
Yes.
So, that's slowing my business down.
It might take 6 months to get the product onto the shelves as well sometimes.
Whereas if I rang Nick now and said, look, can you help me with this? I've got this product coming out. Can you show this off? It's done in a day.
Yeah.
And anything where, like I said to you, you can speed your business up, that revolutionised our business. Influencers and social media revolutionised the business. I had that direct connection with my customer, and I could create my own story that they could buy into and feel like they're part of the brand. Yeah. So it just completely changed the business.
What I don't know whether it's okay talking about this, but I kind of overheard and it was part of the conversation earlier around because essentially Nick Bundy would be like an affiliate. Yeah. Would you class as an affiliate for you guys? So for those who aren't aware, affiliate is someone who isn't necessarily getting paid to promote a product. They're someone who is actually they've got skin in the game. They get some sort of cut or whatever of the sales that are generated from content. Typically, that's how it works. But the beautiful thing about this is you can test stuff with these guys. So you can go, right, guys, I want you to put out we're ready to launch this product, or we want to relaunch, or we want to push on this particular thing. Here's a code to get X amount off a product or whatever. And then they can put that stuff out, and then again with your software, you can track everything. Yeah. Straight away, you can get that data instantly to go, that's worked. Whereas, which is amazing to be able to do, again, because you can sell direct to consumer. Because if we make a piece of content, we know it's successful, but we don't know how successful.
You can't quantify it.
Yeah, because it's too complicated because we're working with the brands. Although I'd like to work with more retailers, I kind of didn't realize there was such an untapped market there. We're working with a brand. We create a launch content that goes out for a particular product. That goes over the next, let's say, 3 months. We market that on our clients' social channels. That then starts to go into the distributors. But it might take 12 months for it to actually go into the retailers, this particular product. So it's about 2 years down the line that we might start to get data on this kind of thing. But a lot of the time, the data isn't it's not that
it's not that clear for you.
That clear or clever for us to go, okay, how many did you sell, and be able to pull that data in. It'd be nice to get those figures, but I think it's for a company like us, it's just too difficult to ask those questions. And
a lot of brands as well, they don't want to be honest with that. Like if somebody asks me about the company, like I'm honest with them. This is what we do. This is how we set the influencer stuff up. And I try to tell people, but a lot of people go, sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it's not, because once it's set up, it just works. It's everything we've done, we've automated.
Yeah.
So it's just, and the more, it's a bit like a Tesla car. The more Teslas that are on the road, the more data they've got for the full self-driving.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like that with us now, it just keeps going like that. So we've got all of that data. So if we want to go and do a particular product with Nick, and we want Nick to sort of show something off, I know any new product that I've designed that's similar to that, I know pretty much Nick's the person to give that product to.
Yes.
And then it becomes so much easier, rather than going, everybody promote it, 2 people have got no sales, or 3 never showed it off because it wasn't for them. It's just everything's instant. It makes the business so much more like agile, quick, and just efficient.
What I like as well, we have a lot of discussions around influencer marketing, which I was surprised, Andrew. I'm going to reference Andrew now because it's the first time we've got Andrew on the Keelan cam. It's Andrew cam today. I've looked at him and I've realised I've not introduced Andrew at all. Yeah. So Keelan's on holiday on a cruise. And he's what, 22? We all think that's weird. He's gone on a cruise, but it's surprising on this podcast how often we mention influencers, and that might be because we're biased in the fact that we work with influencers or content creators, and we work with brands who work with influencers, and it's not actually that much of an area of business for us. We don't get paid necessarily to do that kind of thing. We're not an influencer agency. But the topics that we come across a lot of the time is, how much do you pay them? Like what's, you're trying to get content out of these influencers. They're not doing the right content. It's not looking right. We need to have discussions about the fact that, you told us you were going to do X amount of stories, but you didn't, or like one of them was a rehash. We come across those problems all the time. From an affiliate marketing perspective, you do what you want, mate. Do what you want. But you only get paid when you make
do you know
product.
one mistake that a lot of brands make is they don't realise, somebody like me, for 2-3 years, I was sending products to different people, and I was just sending them to people's pages that I loved and just putting them out there, which at one point everyone was like, you're everywhere, absolutely everywhere, which it may have seemed like, but I was testing these people to see, how they are to deal with on a personal level, how responsive they were, did they talk about the product in the right way? And eventually I whittled it down to a select group of people where I was like, these people, I could take them home, introduce them to my mum. I know they're not going to piss anybody off. And I know that also they are reliable.
Yes.
And that took me 2 or 3 years
And
to get to that. I didn't actually pay anybody
Yeah.
for 2 or 3 years. I was just sending product out, but it was almost just testing and to see whether or not I had that relationship with these people over an extended period of time. Eventually, I started to pay people. And I think a lot of people in the industry will hate me because I had so many influencers, people like Dave Alwood and Ash Mahoney and some of these others messaging me going, how much should I charge? And, I think you talked about it with Emma, talking about media packs. I used to do media packs for free for people because I was just like, do you know what? If you want one, I'll do one, because we had all the data on them, which we'd got on our own system. So I did them all these media packs. But a lot of brands, they don't see that you have to like not test people, but you have to have like a bit of a relationship with them first before you just go. They just expect, they'll say to you, who should I use? Bang. And not actually look at or watch that. But I studied people and then I had all the data to back up to go, actually, the data doesn't match what I'm seeing with people. Sometimes the data didn't, and I still went ahead with it because I was like, actually, I see what you do for us.
Yes.
And the good thing as well was a lot of the people we started to use had already used our product.
Yes.
So I knew I'm not going to have to push you to push this product because I can see you putting it out there before I've even contacted you.
Yeah.
And I think brands sort of underestimate the power of social media. I used to just sit there. People used to call me a vampire because I was up like watching American content, talking to American influencers, Canadian influencers, and then up early talking to ones in Australia. And I did that for 2-3 years before I started paying anybody.
Yeah. And is that still you now? Are you still the guy that's engaging with these guys?
I've got my own page now where I talk to people, but I'm not like I was fully addicted to the science of it.
Yeah.
And it worked. Obviously, since I've sold the business, I've took a step back, and there's people in the office now that are doing it. Probably not to the same like intricate level that I am.
Not 3 a.m.
But the influencer side of stuff now, we've got a real good, tight-knit group of people. And again, a lot of brands, they'll just scattergun it. And then they take on loads of influence because they think the more influencers we got, the more money we make, which isn't true. I try to, again, like it ended up being like that, but I didn't look at what Gymshark did, but I had like a select group of people. So it almost became, and people, how do I become one?
Yeah.
Because I kept it so, there's like 7 or 8 of them now.
It's the elites, you know, you want to be part of that group.
And people are like, how do I get in there? And I'd have to say to people, look, it's not always about your follow account or whatever. There's a whole host of stuff that I'm looking at for people. And again, I get people saying, well, how do I get brands to look at me? And I'm like, well, you have to tag them in stuff to begin with. I said, but only work with brands that you truly, truly love. Like if, I don't know, you wear Snickers workwear, but you get Regatta message you. And this is no disrespect to Regatta or whoever. If they're sending you product and you've been wearing Snickers for ages and you suddenly go, oh, this Regatta stuff, you know, look at it, it's great.
Yeah.
People go, it's bullshit.
Yeah, it's a disconnect.
It's just, I've never seen you wear it. But it's just some people will do that because they want to be a brand ambassador or an influencer. And I just think, just stick to the brands that you love.
Yeah.
And that loyalty eventually pays off because somebody goes, do you know what? Their stuff's great. I love their content and I can see how invested they are in the brand.
Yeah.
Which sometimes they don't think of, I think.
And you can tell, the audience can tell, can't they? You know, especially if you're a prolific content creator, especially on long form and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden you sort of switch to a different brand. Some people could do that and they could do it quite well, especially if they're very honest. But, you know, you can just tell, can't you? If you're just like sort of shilling a brand that you've never had any connection with in the past and you've always been a Snickers guy, that your audience is just like, come on, mate, we know what you're doing. Which is a sad thing for content creators and influencers because I think I've said this in the past as well, is that authenticity is their brand. And that's the, you know, if that's a big stream of income for them, they've got to guard that authenticity. As a creative agency, we don't give a shit. We'll just like the biggest check. Who's you know, what brands? What brands going to pay us?
People will get dangled a carrot by some of these other brands that they've never used before, and it's very difficult for them to turn it down. Because I'd never begrudge anybody their financial situation, but I always think you have to, if that is what you want to do, and you're focused on becoming a brand ambassador or working with brands, you have to have like, just don't get flirty with something just because it's dangled in front of you. If you want to work with a particular brand, you have to stay at it, even if it takes 2 years. Like Mark with us wasn't somebody that I used initially, but he was somebody that I kept watching, and he was tagging products in, and he was like, I love this, and he just loved the product.
Yeah.
And I thought that shines through with him. And eventually I said, oh, do you want to come on board? And he said, yeah, and it's worked out. But
and long term, like he probably, I think we discussed this a little bit on his episode, Mark Tiff's episode, where you might have to turn down short term gains in terms of like a brand coming to you for the long term goal of like, you know, if you're wanting content creation to be a part of your income, a decent part of your income, you got to make some sacrifices in terms of brand deals to guard that authenticity, because you can't just be shilling out to every brand, because you're totally reliant on your audience believing you.
Well, once that's gone, you never sell
can't
anything.
Get it back. It's so difficult.
And at the moment, it's probably okay because a lot of brands don't do something where it's quantifiable. But as soon as it's evolving, and maybe more brands will do direct to consumer.
Yes.
Eventually, you're like, Do you know what I mean?
I wouldn't want to be an influencer. I wouldn't be want to be a content creator. The money maker in me would take every deal. I'd take every deal known to man. I'd be selling products I'd never even used.
I mean, you can compare them. Yeah, you're not going to get paid to compare them because people. And the other thing as well that annoys me about brands, because I see it from both sides. Obviously, I've advised people on this is what you should charge. Like Mark sometimes still asks me, how much do you think I should charge for this?
Yeah,
and it's like, well, this is how I'd work that out. But a lot of brands, they'll send products to influencers and they expect something back from it.
Yes.
I never sent any products to anybody and expected anything back. I was just like, I love your page. That is it. Like, I don't want anything from you. If you don't show them off, you don't show them off.
Yeah.
But people aren't willing, brands especially, to do. They just think, I've sent you that, so you must do this for me. When are you going to post about them? Why haven't you posted about them?
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? We've had products. I've had products sent to me in the past. I'm not an influencer at all. And then they're like, here you go. I'm like, okay. Like, did you need me to, what? And they were like, no, just enjoy. Just enjoy. I'm like, this is great. I felt obliged to create like some really cool content about that. Yeah. But I think if they'd been like, if we send you this product, can you make a video? I'd be like, no.
Well, what happens if somebody doesn't like the product?
Yeah.
And I've always said to somebody, I said, look, if you don't like it, be straight with me and then tell me what you don't like about it, which is how I came to work with PB originally. Was I sent him these like part plastic, part rubber styled products, and he just went, it's not for me. He says, I don't really like plastic. It feels too cheap, plastic. So I ended up doing a whole range of products, which now we use quite a lot of the aluminium sort of side of things, and then sent them to him, and he was like, these are way better.
Yeah.
But initially, I didn't have anything like that.
That's really cool.
But I was like, at least he was honest with me.
Yeah, yeah. It's valuable to get that feedback, isn't it? Absolutely massive. So we've split in the business into like sort of segmenting particular areas like logistics. And did your sister still in the business as well?
She left in August because obviously sold the business.
Yes.
So she was there for just over a year, but her idea was to exit the business.
Okay.
So
is she still in the similar industry?
She's retired.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
She's retired.
I love that.
I think the thing with my sister, she's older than me, you see.
Okay.
And she'd worked at the business slightly longer than what I had. And she was just like, do you know what? I just want to go and enjoy myself for a couple of years. She'll probably go back to doing something. We got property businesses together, so we still do that. But she just wanted to chill out.
Very cool.
Which is fair enough.
I love that. Yeah. So you segmented the business. You brought on, you started this program, with working with influencers, content creators, and things like that. Was there anything else that you did, with Unilite that's kind of attributed marketing-wise to your success?
Changing the colour of the products and targeting a specific, like tradesmen and women,
not niche down.
Yeah, we had to. We used to do, like I said to you before, we did stuff for camping, for walking, for rock climbing, whatever it was. We did something for everybody, and the products were all in different colours, different styles. Nothing really matched. The logo didn't really say anything to anybody. And when I came into the business, I was like, right, okay, we need to target one specific group. We need to do, a certain style of product where it felt more premium. The packaging represented that. Everything that we sort of did fell into that. And then the one probably biggest thing that we changed was the colour of the product.
Yes.
Because, when you do something in blue, you do it in orange, you do it in black. There's no brand identity there.
Yes.
Whereas we put everything into that high-vis yellow. And I remember it was about 7 or 8 months we ummed and ahed about it. We did products in black with yellow switches or all yellow with black switches. We took them to an exhibition and people said, oh, I'd buy that one more. And I remember when we first launched it, because it was high-vis yellow, everyone was like, why would I wear a canary on my head, like yellow head torches? And the best thing that we ever did was across social, across TV, because our products end up on TV, people go, it's a Unilite product. That's so those colours now are synonymous with us. And then everything that we did then with the branding, the style of videos that we had the strap line for the business, which was Lights Built Tough, which eventually became #BuiltTough. But stuff like that, all sort of one thing led to the next thing. And then you go, okay, well, if I change that, and then before you realise it, your customers are sort of pushing you in a direction of how they want to see the brand. Because they're giving you, the data back, especially with the direct-to-consumer. I was getting that data back all the time. Oh, actually, they prefer aluminium products to plastic products. They're buying more head torches than inspection lights or whatever it is. And all of that sort of, they're meandering your business for you. All that data that you get back and all the things that they say to you at an exhibition or the things that they say to you on social media or the way you see them using the product in videos, you're like,
Yeah.
And that's why social media, for anybody watching this, I can't big it up enough. It revolutionised our business.
I think that's the one thing then, social media.
Revolutionised it.
Yeah.
You look at any of the big, large, successful brands over the last few years that have come out, like Lounge Underwear, that's another Birmingham-based business, which, it's in essence, it's just women's underwear. But they're massive, direct-to-consumer. Same with Gymshark, the same with Able, which is the other guy who started Gymshark. It's another gym brand. Like brands like Hera, Represent. These are all brands that are like born e-com brands.
Yeah.
But how did they get so big? Because they had the data of the customer and they know their customer. And that was, for us, social media just revolutionised it. I had instant access to customers 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And feedback. If something was wrong, picked it up and it's sorted. Whereas with a distributor, like I said, you're waiting for how did this campaign do?
Yeah.
But you sat there and time doesn't stop. Your business is still moving. Whereas if it's instant feedback, I can navigate quicker.
That's mad.
So it made us more nimble.
With the because you can work so quickly, you can get sales, you can get data instantly. Has that affected the way that you market the brand? As because I imagine, I know this for a fact, there's a lot of brands out there, their sole focus is advertising and not necessarily marketing, if you know what I mean. They'll sort of sacrifice brand like creative for a quick buck, a quick sale. Let's just move this stuff around. Do you focus a lot on like, okay, not every piece of content needs to sell the product?
The best brands that do that are like Red Bull. You look on Red Bull's Instagram, you never see a Red Bull can. And that's because they're selling high performance, like,
so mindset.
On the edge, like everything's like, they're not even selling a can of drink anymore.
No.
And I used to look at brands like that. That's why we started doing the videos of like smashing products or driving over in a tank. And in our industry, it's very difficult to do anything where you're not showing off the product.
Yes.
Because it is a product. Obviously, when you're doing Red Bull, you can have Red Bull plastered on the side of a racing car. Put Unilite on the side of a racing car. It's very, very different. And I think when you're sort of in that like retail side of things, it's easier for you to not show off the product as much as like industry. People want to see it working. That's the whole point. They want to see, you turn the light on, wow, look at that up against the side of a house.
Yes.
Type of thing. But we try to do our own spin on it, like driving over in a tank, sending one into space.
I saw the cricket guys. There was the thing. There was
Warwickshire cricket players. Yeah.
First piece of content I ever saw from Unilite, which solidified on it. These guys have got it. Or you can you? I can't remember it perfectly. Can you tell the story of like how that came to be and
well, we were sponsoring Warwickshire Cricket Club at the time, and I'd actually ironically talked to one of the tools about ideas for videos, and those guys, they were coming back with stuff, and I was thinking it's still not quite right for me. I had some good ideas, but I was like, I want to convey that I work in construction. People want to know that stuff's like construction's like a big, tough, hard job. You're outside in the elements, all that sort of stuff. I want something where it shows just how durable one of these things is. And if you're buying our product, that's what you're getting. And then I had the idea to go down to Warwickshire Cricket Club, and I thought maybe we hit them with some bats. Yeah. And then I thought, no, how do I get players in? Because I can't just have players just chucking it up and hitting a work light. I thought, right, what we're going to do, set it up on the tripod, and we're going to have speed bowlers. Yeah. Their two fastest bowlers just throwing balls at it. And then those guys were smashing them down. I thought, right, we'll bring out the bowling machine and turn it up to 100 miles an hour, which no one's ever going to throw something at a product at 100 miles an hour. But I want people to see that hit the product and it still works.
Wicked.
And it's sort of that reverse psychology of, wow, look at that. Like, and it's a cool video.
Yeah.
It's something different.
It's entertaining.
Yeah.
It goes back to that kind of entertain, educate, engage. Got all three really there.
Yeah. And then that set the precedent then for doing driving over it in a tank, shooting it with a shotgun, sending one into space. And we were going to carry on doing all these different videos, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
Which sort of stopped that. And then because we were so focused then on the direct-to-consumer and the short-form content, the long-form content sort of fell by the wayside. Because we were so successful with the short-form, I never really went back to long-form.
But I would class the those kinds of, like the cricket one, like that for me, that's not your typical direct-to-consumer e-commerce, put some money behind this and try and convert ad. You know, that is brand, essentially. It's like great brand creative. It says something obviously educates about the product, but it's not just flogging the product. It's got some culture behind it and some creative, and that kind of what I was getting at was the kind of some brands exist just to create ads, and that's it. Every single piece of content that they do,
but it's
no organic.
It makes you less successful.
Yeah,
you have to be sort of like you have to entertain people, but you have to give them a reason to be entertained, and this is what you're going to get back. You know, I'm actually selling somebody the product there because I'm showing how durable it is, but I'm not directly saying, look, you got to buy it because this thing is as tough as nails.
Yeah,
I'm doing it like, look at this, how cool this is.
Yeah,
like firing cricket balls, because you know most guys especially be like, let's stick the bowling machine on, let's break it. And that was the sort of reasoning behind it. Even like people look and say, well, why did you do that space video? Because I think it cost me about $6-7 grand to do.
Cool though.
To send it into space. But again, it was to show, look, we test our products like lithium batteries to like -20.
Yes.
When it's up in the atmosphere, it's -60. And the product stayed on the whole time. So I'm showing that we can, you know, the test that we do, I mean, the product's reliable, but I'm even going past what I test. You know, for me, it's to show, look how far we're going on the scale, and stuff like that. Again, it was exciting to me because it's not just, you know, selling to somebody. I'm showing somebody, look how cool this is, and it's cool to see your product actually achieve that.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for context for the viewer and the listener, like where can people find these? Is it on LinkedIn?
It's on YouTube. The videos.
YouTube. Okay.
Yeah. On the Unilite YouTube, the videos for.
Go check those bits and pieces out so you kind of understand like what we're talking about. But really cool pieces of content. And was that when you were filming those? Was that with your in-house team, or were you outsourcing for that kind of stuff?
The Sent Into Space guys are an external company, and they have to track everything. They've got flight data as well, because you can't just send up
you can't send can't send Jack up there.
Yeah. So they have to like pre-plan everything, the weather, like points of location where you let it go and where it lands and all that, and they track the whole thing for you. So they're external. That first cricket video actually wasn't done by the guys internally. That was a guy called George who has a company called Rhodopond, and he now does loads of like real big videos for football teams.
Wicked.
So he's really progressed. But that was, both of those were external, and the one for the tanks and stuff like that was done in-house. But everything else after that was basically, I thought, I'm using these guys, I love what they do, but it's costing me big money.
Yeah.
And obviously when that money is sort of tight for a small business, you think, if I bring somebody in, I can have consistent content that we can go out and do. But initially it's sort of like, well, I'm paying somebody's wage, that's 4 or 5 of those videos that I can go and do. And some people don't want to take that leap. And if I hadn't taken that leap, I don't think the business would be as successful now.
I think you've got to, you know, if you're going to take on this much investment, because you've got what? I counted, last time I counted, it was like 3 people in your content team.
So I've got Jack, G and Kai, videographers, but the good thing with them is they can edit as well.
Yes.
Some people are great at shooting a camera but can't really edit, which I think now is not so much, but we've got those guys. We've got Nathan who does all web and like CRM integration and stuff like that. We've got Chloe on socials, Tim who'll do like a bit of the data for the website, and then we've got Lisa who does like, she looks after all the pictures and like the brand stuff like that.
Okay, that's cool. So, I mean, just having, I mean, I would class almost like, in terms of content team, I'd probably put Lisa in there as well to some extent. You got your three guys who are on video and probably stills as well. They do a bit of stills and stuff. Yeah. Like, and you've got Lisa. Like, you've got to commit to creating stuff so often to be able to warrant that amount of investment, right? And I think a lot of brands would be way too scared.
If you're a certain size and you've got the profit within your business, go and do it.
Yeah,
go and do it. But I think a lot of people are worried to go and do it. But obviously, again, like I said, when I started, there wasn't a you.
No.
You know, and obviously, if I hadn't have started, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll just. And that's another thing as well, is a lot of brands go, well, I don't want to go and spend that money on wages, but then they don't want to pay you probably a quarter of that to do it for 6 months or a year. And you think, well, you're never going to do it then.
You've got to tie up, because I think the thing is, like, what happens with us regularly is we run out of budget. Our clients run out of budget because video is expensive. You know,
well, they don't realise how time consuming to go all the way to somewhere is, just travelling there, set equipment up. Yeah. Obviously, the stuff that goes in behind the scenes before you've gone out, because you've got to pre-plan everything, because they want to see, what am I getting? Yes. And then obviously you're there for maybe a day, 2 days doing a full shoot or getting stills or whatever, and then you've got the edit. Yeah. And then you've got any tweaks that they want from something. It's so expensive. It's funny actually, and I don't know whether there's got to be some way of educating. Maybe this is the podcast to educate brands on this kind of thing. I gave a rough idea of cost for a production to with a company the other day in a meeting, and I said it's going to be 1 day production, this and this, a few extra little bits and bobs, 10 grand. That it's going to be roughly 10 grand. I'd have to figure it out, and you have to give me a proper brief. Or this is why I kind of like, we prefer the retained model, because we don't need to. Brands know where they stand with that as well. Yeah, and once you kind of understand, once you've been working with us for 6 months, you understand how much stuff costs. All of our rates are set, but it's just like there are certain things that are like editing, for instance. You do a production, like say a 1 day production. They don't. Brands and people that, our customers a lot of the time don't factor in the editing time. So they go, well, you do 1 day production, we want 20 edits out of that. Okay, well that's tripled the cost of that production, because that's a month of editing, as opposed to a 1 day production that has one piece of hero content. It's a very different beast entirely. Well, even when I was utilising, say, that video for Warwickshire Cricket Club cost me £3.5 grand. Yeah, £3.5 grand, and it was one edit with a couple of social media, short reels. Literally £3.5 grand. Yeah, but people are like, that was 10 years ago. Yeah, it's mad. So I don't think people understand how much goes into it. No, and the guy who I was speaking to, lovely guys, they're just not. They are not educated in this. They go, is that pretty high end? Then I'm like, no. That's not even close to high. He's like, he was like, are you like top level, like in terms of cost? Well, the website that I had done with the marketing agency, external, was £50,000. Which is why I brought Nathan in house, because I was like, 50 grand. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've made enough money off the website over the years from direct to consumer, but at the time, like for a small company, so I've been guilty of it myself, thinking, how much? Jesus, yeah, 50 grand. 50 grand to anybody's a lot of money, isn't it? And because I think the thing is, it's mindset. Like, people don't think, actually, if I do that, is it gonna bring me more sales? Is it going to make the brand seem better? Are people going to trust that brand more because I've done that? Which it does. I think the difficulty is, especially when it comes to pricing, is that you can get a website for £1 grand somewhere, Fiverr, some local person. So there's a website here that's for £1 grand, there's a website here for 50 grand. They're both going to do very different things, and a lot of it's to do with e-com. It's got to be robust. It's got to sell. It's got to work. It's got to. If you're doing direct to consumer, the worst thing for you is your website goes. Exactly. Or orders get messed up. And because anytime a problem happens in ordering and things like, we've seen this with businesses where they've changed to a different system. These are huge businesses. They've changed to a different system. They've fucked up some orders. It's ruined their business. Gymshark had that Black Friday, and they'd moved from, was it Shopify to Magento? Okay, people switch between the two a lot, don't they? I think they'd moved to Magento, and they switched the website on for Black Friday. And I think they had £100,000 worth of orders, and literally the website crashed. It all went down, and people weren't getting orders. Orders hadn't gone through, and I think Ben said it cost him like 70,000-80,000 in lost revenue. Which, when you're a sort of startup business as he was, so I was just like, if I'm going to do it, it needs to be done right.
It's got to be robust. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's mad, and it was quite funny, and I think a lot of the time the difficulty is with especially when pricing video production, photography, and stuff like that, the conversation is too long to be able to educate them at the time. You know what I mean? It would feel like a rant.
Maybe you just need to say to people, like, do videos behind the scenes here showing how much goes into it.
I think a big part of the strategy for us socially was to show a lot of the what goes into the behind the scenes, because then you see the crew, you see the lighting, but what you don't see a lot of is the planning and the editing, and the editing is the biggest expense.
But even this, like, if we're looking around the room, most people obviously aren't going to see this, but they might see pictures on your Instagram, the amount of camera equipment that's in here. Obviously Andy sat there with the edit for it. Obviously we're sat here, this is our time now, which is costing money, but
no one's paying us for it.
Everything costs money. And you know, we do the podcast, and Jack sometimes has spent all week editing podcasts. You know, obviously we've got software that helps us, but you've still got to go over and fine tune everything if you want a certain level of production.
Absolutely. It's mad. We'll talk about the production. I think we could probably wrap it up there, because there's so many really, really valuable points that we've had there. I don't want to dilute it with anything else, because we talked about using ambassadors, the how going direct to consumers completely changed the business, how you have split marketing and brand from other areas of the business.
I'm going to be hated by everybody, wholesalers.
Yes.
Other brands for saying that influencers should get paid. I'm going to be.
I think especially for, you know, and that was what was quite interesting as well. What we discussed earlier about the fact that there are some brands where going direct to consumer won't work. It just won't work. You can try it, but you're probably going to annoy your distributors and your customers more than the benefit that you get from going direct to consumer, because a box of screws, I don't know whether that would be relevant to go direct to consumer, but who knows? Hilti do it. You know, Hilti, pretty much everything Hilti do is direct to consumer, right? I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I know, like the batteries and stuff, I had to buy off there for when I was designing the product. I had to go and buy everybody's batteries, which cost me probably £1,000 to go and buy all these different types of batteries when we were doing the multi-tool battery line.
Yes. I mean, Hilti, everyone knows Hilti. They're one of the biggest construction brands. I'm pretty sure they're direct to consumer. We'll edit this out if they're not. I'll check afterwards. But I want to talk about the podcast because I came on the podcast, loved it. And
that's another marketing tool, the podcast.
Amazing marketing tool, as you know, as we're discovering now. But how did that come about? And was that a part of the Unilite kind of strategy that kind of branched off? Like
a lot of the stuff that I've done, I've stumbled across.
Okay.
Like people go, oh yeah, you know, like you've done really well with the marketing, with the brand, but a lot of it's stumbled across. And I mean, one thing really, I think the best thing that ever happened to us as a business was COVID. We'd managed to get the direct to consumer website done. But that also gave me the time, because I always wanted to diversify into different products, but it actually gave me the time to actually do some of these things like the tape measures, the safety glasses, all that sort of stuff. And I designed loads of different products for different things. Like I just look at something and think, how could I make that better? And it freed me up to start focusing on that side of things. And at the same time, I'd always wanted to do a podcast, but there'd always been negativity around it. Our podcast's never really taken off, you know, blah, blah, blah. Podcasts aren't successful. And I thought, I want to get to know these people that I'm working with on social media.
Yes.
Because I speak to everybody all the time. I was saying to Andrew before, I don't really know these people on a personal level. And I thought, I want to hear their stories because I may learn something about how to make a product better.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I rang PB at the time and I was like, fancy doing a podcast? And he was like, I said, come on, I'll get the whole set built at work. I said, we'll get everything ready. And we got some specialised Trade Legends beers made with a company that runs a brewery down the road. And we got the podcast together. And I thought, I've got Pete on. Pete can talk to people from a perspective of being a tradesperson, and I'll talk to them as a brand and as a business, and we get different people on. So if a brand's on, I can talk to them, and Pete obviously uses their product and vice versa and stuff like that. And I didn't realise just how successful the podcast would become purely from the fact of everybody that came on. I feel bad if like I invite somebody onto the podcast and I don't give them something because they've travelled there.
Yeah.
So I'd always go, fancy some products? Yeah, I'll have some products. You know, give a hoodie or give like some lights or, you know, utility knives and stuff like that. Not thinking anything of it. And everybody that came on would go, wow, look at this haul that I've got. And people were like, oh, I want to go on there. So I get a haul of goodies. But also people were like, you know, painters and decorators that never really thought I need a really good light.
Yes.
You know, and they were seeing like Paint Warrior Kev with this light on there. Where can I get one from? And because we had the direct to consumer, Kev was like, you just buy one off their website or it's in this wholesaler. And what's ended up happening was just from the podcast, we get painting and decorating stores that come through and say, can I stock these products? I've seen them on blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, the direct to consumer sales were going up. And I was thinking, hold on a minute, I've stumbled across like the best marketing tool.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to learn about these people, but also make those relationships. And if ever you see Black Friday, for example, I can send out a piece of content and say to people, do you mind just putting this on your stories with a link? And you'll see the Unilite Black Friday sale on so many people's pages because they're like, yeah, no probs now.
Yeah.
And it's because I've always helped these people or done a media pack for them or I've had them on the show and it became my network. And now it's literally, I can, you know, I had Derek Barrett, carpenter, message me because he said to me, he said, oh, thanks for sending me, he asked for a charger. And because he's always supported us as a brand, I've had him on the podcast. I just sent him 2 or 3 products with his charger. He's like, you didn't have to, mate. I was like, well, you know, thanks.
Yeah.
Type of thing. But he's stuck a post out this morning and put it all over his socials. I never asked him to, but
yeah, that's it.
And that's how the podcast sort of progressed. I never really thought about it in, you know, a bigger sense.
Yes.
And also I never wanted sponsors on there. I was adamant I don't want any sponsors because I was like, just don't want anybody trying to tell me what to do with it or what to say on there or we can't have that guest on because it just, you know, it kills the show off. And then over a period of time, the amount of brands that were like hounding me.
It's great.
Saying, I've seen your show, I've seen this, can we sponsor it? Can we do this with you? Do you do anything else? And I was like, well, go on then, we'll do a giveaway. First thing was a giveaway. And then after that, it's sort of, you know, we ended up with Bisley Workwear as a headline sponsor. And now obviously it's CT1, but all these brands kept coming through and they were like pestering me all the time saying, we want to work with the show. So it's become in essence now its own standalone business.
Yes. And how did you, from a perspective, I don't think we're in any danger of having any major sponsors for this particular podcast.
Never say never.
We never. Yeah, this is it. I think it'd be cool to have. I was thinking about it the other day. Well, someone did offer to sponsor it the other day. To be fair, I won't mention who they were. A great guy, and we really appreciate the offer. But there's a point in the podcast. In that conversation, we go, I have no idea what to charge for sponsorship for this thing. It's a bit like the media packs. You go, I don't know. Is there a money value associated with viewers and
well,
things like that?
Our thing was, it was more like the Spotify. People are listening to that all the time. So if we put an advert on there, I think we've had well over 1 million downloads now on Spotify, and we're over 1.2 or 1.1 million views on YouTube.
Great.
Obviously that's now, but when it first started out, I wasn't, you know, I was like, well, if you want to sponsor it, it's just going to be this.
Yeah.
But as it's grown, I think we've got 70,000 followers across all platforms, which for a podcast for the trades,
is so niche, isn't it?
He's mega. But obviously I still don't go, well, you know, like some of the influencers, when you talk to them, they're like, yeah, I want 20 grand for this. And you go, you know, no. But we're sort of just, I'd rather have somebody that's going to be there long term that supports the podcast,
the growth,
rather than being, okay, well, we'll be here and we don't get anything back. Well, it is. I want to work with you, and you know, I'd rather have that longevity with somebody.
Absolutely. So I think for us, it's that opportunity to be able to stop doing it for free. You know, it's that kind of thing of like,
well, it just covers the cost, really. You know, I've got Jack videos it. He has to edit it. Nathan helps with booking people on. But obviously I don't want it being where I'm not rewarding those guys for their time.
Yes.
So it all costs. The equipment that's in here, I dread to think the cost of the equipment, and people go, oh yeah, but you're hiring it out.
Yeah.
I've had to put that initial investment in.
Yes.
And it cost us 20 grand to do the whole podcast set with the actual set and the cameras, the lights, the mics.
Yeah.
And I still remember my sister going, what the fuck have you spent this money on?
Yeah.
And I was like, but it's just something that will be good for the brand. And then when obviously the direct to consumer and the brand started to take off, she was like, well done on that podcast.
Yeah.
So
yeah, an interesting thing, I think a lot of people won't know this about our podcast studio is we actually crowdfunded it. We went to I say crowdfunded it, we went to our clients and we were like, we're thinking about doing this. We put together like a pack. We're thinking about doing this. This is something that we want to do anyway. We're going to do it anyway, but we haven't got the budget to make it as good as we could make it. We want this to be super, super high end. So we put together a package where like a discounted rate to do a pilot for our clients, 6 episodes where we produce everything. And it was, obviously the recording, the social media clips, behind the scenes imagery.
Do any of your clients utilise it?
Yeah. So
because that's, again, any advice from me is if they get the opportunity to come on, talk about your business in a setting where people can easily digest it. Short form content, you can't digest anything because it's.
Yeah. Well, we've produced 1 podcast for Thomas Dudley, and then we're looking to revisit that next year as well. That was relatively successful, and because the podcast can be a couple of different things. It can be really successful. Yours is really successful because it engages with a much larger audience, which is tradesmen in general, tradespeople. Or you can have like a corporate podcast, which is having very specific conversations to a very niche market, which is perhaps your suppliers. That's
why I called it Trade Legends, because I didn't want to. A lot of people have like an electrical podcast, but you can only talk to electricians.
Exactly.
And there's only going to be a set amount of people that would listen to that. Whereas I wanted it to be like it's a bit more wider.
Yes.
Wider net. So I was saying before, I could go and get people that wrap cars or spray finishers or whatever.
The guys that I was on with, like shoemakers.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the trade.
Yeah.
It's like a dying trade, which is really, really cool. Absolutely we did. So we crowdfunded all of that and I was like, but we haven't built it yet. Here's what it's going to look like. Can you give us some money?
Some money to it.
And that was how we did it. And I kind of went, why don't we do this for everything? Why don't we just crowdfund everything? Anytime I want to do like, I don't know, if I want to hire a new member of the team or something, I'm like, I might just crowdfund
even
it.
the set's in there. Because if people sell a specific product and they know they can come in any time, it's already set up for them and they can use that for themselves.
100%.
It'd be...
that's something you can do. Yeah, it's you can just crowdfund everything. I've got a couple of other projects that I quite like the idea of doing, and there will be a lot of investment. I think of crowdfunding that would be amazing. I've gone off topic a little bit there, Alex. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you think, God, this is a really valuable piece of information that I came in with and that you've not asked me a question about? Anything I've missed here? Specifically to do with your success in Unilite?
I think that the only thing I did was you have to take a risk on absolutely everything. If I'd have gone, it's going to cost me this to hire my first videographer, and gone, none of the rest would have happened. So I feel like people, especially other marketeers that are going to be watching this, and especially from brands, even from like influencers themselves, you have to take that risk on it because if you don't do anything, you're never going to know. And if you do something and it goes, worst thing is somebody say no to you or it goes wrong and you try it again. Yeah, you just have to you have to take that risk. And it's sort of, if people are sitting there thinking, oh well, he's just quoted me £10,000 for this, you've got to think in your head, where do you see the brand now and where do you want the brand to be?
Yes.
And the only way that you get there is by doing those small steps across a period of time. Like it's taken us 5 years of social media sort of style to get to where we are. And I'm in no way an expert, but I've sort of self-taught myself to help the business. Yes. And you have to take an interest in it. There's no point going, Dan, we want you to come in and we want you to do all this sort of stuff. And then they don't know what they want. You have to go, okay, well, we tried that. I love this, but on the next one, could we try this?
Yes.
And you sort of lead where you go, and then your customers will give you feedback. Oh, yes, I saw that video you guys did. Absolutely amazing. And I feel like that's what people need to take more risk or get more involved and obsess. Like I obsessed about social media. I just saw how it was working and with the website and the data that we were getting. And I thought the more that I did that, the more it just, what we were drawing into the software for influencers and ambassadors. Like I could probably go and sell that software now.
Yes. I've got a question about that. After, we'll save that to after the podcast because I'm quite interested in that as well. I'm going to use this episode as for the guys who are concerned about return on investment when it comes to video production, because it comes across like great. We appreciate that you guys spend some money, but I just want to make sure I get a return on investment. The problem is if you're B2B, you won't see that return. You won't understand the return on investment. You won't get the data for a while, but it's there. If you direct to consumer, it's the same thing, except you get that data straight away. You know where the sales are coming from. You know that this has had a massive impact in, what's going on in terms of marketing. Yeah. So I might just, anytime I get that conversation, that question, I'm just going to point them to this bit of the podcast now.
But also the other thing that they get, which they don't realise, is if they are working with influencers, you are in essence getting extra salespeople that are buying into your brand.
Yes,
they're going to support you. So if they're online and all the jobs that they're doing, they're consistently using your product in these videos. It's subliminal advertising. Yes. Like if you ever see people where they're talking in a van, there's always a Unilite sticker there, or they've got a Unilite gilet on, or they'll be like scribing something with a pencil and it's a Unilite pencil. It's my style of marketing is just, it's not in your face. I'm not trying to show it off all the time. It's just like a Unilite air freshener in someone's van.
Yeah.
And I just kept going. If people keep seeing the logo, if people keep seeing the colour, so if these brands are looking at that £10,000 thinking, well, what do I get from it? There's nothing tangible. Well, you've just made that relationship with an influencer.
Absolutely.
That person then is loyal to your brand and consistently pushing it on their platform.
I had this conversation with someone the other day that I think we said, construction's had a tough year this last 12 months. I think on average it's down by about 4 to 8%, depending on the type of business you are. So sales haven't been great for a lot of businesses. Some have been great, but we start to think about things like redundancies, and you start to think about these kinds of things. And I had a conversation with someone the other day that said it's probably more likely for some of these bigger brands who are more savvy with marketing and social media, they're more likely to lay off a salesperson than they are an influencer. If the budgets are being constrained,
influencers are salespeople.
Exactly.
Even if they're not pushing somebody to directly go and buy it from your website, they're showing it off that somebody might then go into a branch and push it. And also with the influencer is you're not paying their national insurance, their tax, pension contributions. You're not having to pay for them to stay away. Yeah. But you've also got somebody there that you can pick up on the phone straight away, and you haven't got all the HR issues that come with.
No. I mean, a decent sales guy's
unless they go off the rails and say something that you don't like. But you have to take that risk with people sometimes.
You take risks with sales guys, don't you? Because and girls, because you can pay a sales guy 80 to 100 grand a year, whatever. There's going to be scales of that who can go cool, and they do a good job for you, and then they take all of that business to a competitor. That's if anything way more risky. So it makes sense, and that happens especially in construction. A lot. It's really competitive, and you can see why the industry is super competitive. I don't like that about the industry, but I get it. I do understand that.
We just couldn't find anybody decent.
Yeah,
people that want to turn up for work. Like I can teach anybody anything, but I can't make you get out of bed in the morning.
No, I can't make you love it.
Yeah,
that's absolutely mad. Really, really powerful stuff, Alex. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's amazing. Where's the best place for people to find you specifically?
Probably on Instagram.
Okay.
Big Al Trade Legends. I did try and start a YouTube, but because I had a third child, everything's just gone out the window. So I need to get back on my own content, which is basically going to talk about me building houses.
Cool.
Me also doing like a finance and business podcast with a friend of mine called Matt, who I did a Trade Legends podcast with, trying to teach people about tax and how to set up limited companies and all that sort of side of things. Just putting out content now, really, because people go, people only put out these bits of content to do business courses and stuff like that. My thing is now I've had a successful business in this side of things. And if people want to learn how I did my marketing or what type of stuff I do in the property sort of side of things, they can learn that. But the majority of it will be free stuff. If somebody wants one-on-one coaching to help them start things, then that's fine. But the majority is all going to be free content on YouTube.
Super.
And hopefully teach people a little bit of what I've learned, if that's anything of use to people.
I think you get to a certain time in your life, a certain age. I'm 35 now, and my YouTube has gone from like nerding out about camera equipment to compound interest, property investment, business investment, and stuff like that.
As soon as you have kids, I think, and it's sort of like my thing is now is I feel like I've not had my life because I'm 41, but everything that I do now is for my kids.
Yes.
So sort of the property side and the finance side. But if I can help people, because I don't know everything myself, like I learn stuff every day. But if I can help, even talking about, I did one thing on the podcast talking about kids' pensions. People didn't realise you can put money away into kids' pensions from the minute they're born.
Yeah.
And if you did that, like even £100 a month until they're 18, like the pot that they've got, and if they consistently did it themselves, they'd have over £1 million in pension by the time they're pension age.
Yeah, never even thought about that.
But people...
That's what I love about these kinds of things is if you're going off and cracking off and doing your own thing in that area and you're making mistakes and telling people about it saves me from making that mistake. You can learn from other people's experience, pick out the best bits, and I'm excited for that. I'll be 100% a subscriber to that because I like the idea of that. I do think I think you're right,
because you don't get taught it at school.
No. You don't get taught,
and then you learn horrible lessons, especially if you're you're young. You take a credit card out, and you go and max it out, thinking, not thinking about interest rates.
There's no financial education in mainline education at all, is there?
That's why one of my heroes is that Martin. Is it Martin Lewis?
Yes,
on the TV.
Yeah,
because even though he's not like my cup of tea with how he explains it, but that guy has done like loads of good for people.
Yeah. It's just that all this information is available. It's just difficult to digest and understand, isn't it? I love it. Thank you so much again, Alex.
Thanks for having me.
Go and check out Unilite, check out Alex, and keep an eye on the YouTube as well. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.